Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, December 5th, 2025, and today we are talking about my microscopes, dry farming, and it is Feedback Friday, so let's do it. All right, happy Friday, everyone. I hope your week was a success. It has barely been above freezing here this week, and it will likely be much more of the same next week. And although I've kept busy with other projects that aren't necessarily, outside in the cold, I can see some crop and season planning in my future. Definitely a cold start to this December. Voice is still on the upswing, as you can maybe tell. So that's like good news for someone who reads the equivalent of a 3,000-word essay every morning. This is one of those jobs where my health is constantly on display, like mental, physical, vocal. And so in some ways, that's motivation to always stay healthy, obviously. But in other ways, mostly unavoidable ones, this show is always just like nerdy farming information punctuated by whatever I happen to be going through on any given day. That's one reason I love the farm video clips actually so much. My chance to share in your worlds a little bit. So please feel encouraged to send your 20-second farm video clips to farmermike@notillgrowers.com. What are your winter gardens looking like? Or summer gardens for our Southern Hemisphere folks? Anyway, it is Friday, which means Feedback Friday, where we explore what you all were saying about this week's topics. On Monday, we talked about cover crops as a mulch, fill dirt concerns, and we also tacked on a little bit of a Feedback Monday thing there. On the fill dirt thing, I liked this from @UGAFan24, who wrote, quote, "It sounds like typical fill dirt to me. Screen fill is what you could ask for in the future if you want subsoil that's been run through a half-inch screen. It would screen quote-unquote trash like rock, Bermuda rhizomes, beer cans, etc. Also be aware that quote-unquote topsoil may be brown dirt or screened trash from a mulch business. This trash is old mulch, rotten mulch, ruts that needed smoothing, all the bits that pile up on the yard. When that pile is so big, it will be screened. What doesn't make it through the screen starts the new trash pile." End quote. Okay, good insight there. Also, I complained that day about sunlight, or the lack thereof, here in Kentucky, and @EJ Hone wrote, quote, "No dang sunlight," quoting me. "Visit Sweden for a while if you want to feel better about your light levels. Our current day length is 6 hours and 36 minutes, end quote. Totally fair. I really can't complain with that comparison. We're getting around 8 hours and 40 minutes of sunlight right now. That said, you all in Sweden probably also get worthwhile snow. Not saying the kids don't love our snow. They'll take any snow they can get. And not saying it's bad snowball snow, because it's actually really good. We get really good snowball snow here. But we mostly just live in mudland. I would probably take 6.5 hours of worthwhile snow and frozen ponds to play hockey on over 8 hours and 40 minutes of mud. But the grass, or in this case, the snow, is always greener, right? On Tuesday, we discussed where we get our seeds, straw, not where we get our straw, but it's a separate topic, and helping the soil recover from a drought. On the seeds convo, @YoupTrooper wrote, quote, "Love your podcast and your book. I had a significant germination issues last spring with onion seed and snap pea seed from one of my favorite big companies you mentioned. As a conspiracy theorist, I suspect I got 2 or 3 year old onion seed because onion seeds are only good for 1 year. Not sure on the pea seed, possibly heat damaged. Have you ever purchased seed that you suspected was old seed? What type of conditions will make seed unviable? I'm in zone 3A/4B, so only get one shot at every crop besides microgreens and spinach. Thanks," end quote. Okay, so good question. So as far as I can tell, as far as I know, seeds have to have a germ test and a date on them by law in order to sell, at least here in the United States. That will give you an idea of what percentage of germ that seed hit and when it was tested, though that obviously won't tell you exactly when it was harvested. But if it's old, you should be able to tell by the poor germ rate on the test and how long ago that test was. Now, I'm not saying this is you, but almost 100% of the time that someone tells me they think they got bunk seed, it's just a simple user error, as in the germination conditions were maybe just not adequate for that particular variety, or the storage conditions of the seeds weren't adequate, etc. Get your seed from a trusted source. I mean, you in this case, you said a big supplier that I mentioned, but just for everyone else listening, like Etsy and Amazon, these are not seed companies. Just for the record, not saying you can't find some unique stuff there or even good seed. Just, if it's for production, stick to the pros. But I cannot think of a single time I've gotten a seed that I didn't get the germination that I expected out of it when my setup was adequate. Maybe it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. But in my experience for like 16 years, I've never really run into it. Lots of kind comments that day on my voice struggles. Appreciate that. I also appreciated this from @PhilipDion, who wrote, quote, "Shout out to Farmer Jesse for using whatever leftover vessel is available for drinking water," end quote. Indeed. Picky I am not. And today's teacup is an Oscar Sheboy mug. So that's fun. Shouts to Oscar. Rebound king, that guy. On Wednesday, we had the great Mikey and Kez back on Five Tails Farm to talk about lo-fi tomato grafting, farm team dynamics, and profit first farming. Lots of great feedback, as always, on that episode. At Riri Gets Crafty wrote, quote, "Such a great episode. I cannot agree more about recommending the Profit First book and podcast for anyone running a business. It's such a great resource," end quote. At Jeff Daly wrote, quote, "Could a caterpillar tunnel be built with progressive changes to shade cloth along the length of the tunnel? Have the seedlings on tables / racks with wheels so you can simply wheel them up to the next light exposure," end quote. So that's it's kind of an interesting idea. Technically, something like that would work, and on a large scale, it might make sense, especially if you were, selling grafted plants or just doing thousands of them. Where it might not make sense is if you are also needing that space for other transplants. Like, you wouldn't want all of that shade cloth covering your whole greenhouse if you need other stuff that doesn't want the shade. But I've seen where people set up greenhouses within their greenhouses as well, little enclosed areas within the tunnel where you could do something like that. Or what I described, where you just like peel back the layers of shade cloth slowly. So you start with a really thick layer and then you just peel that back as needed, which usually works out because our shade cloth is like, 100 feet long, and if I only need to cover 10 feet, then I can have 10 layers and then slowly fold those back. One thing that I mean will always be awesome about farming is that there's no one right way to do any of it. It's all about context and your own ingenuity. Huge shouts to Mikey and Kez, as always, for coming on and sharing. So if you missed that episode, if you're interested at all in running a farm like a business, you should definitely check it out. Then on Thursday, we talked about crop planning, science of lettuce packaging, and a specific hay mulch for strawberries idea. On the strawberry question, at Lamb's Quarters Farm wrote, quote, "I grow strawberries using hay as mulch. They are slower to get to market because hay keeps soil cooler later. Weeds are an issue, especially near the berry plants. If they get too big, you can lose berry roots when weeding. I don't personally see burlap working out well. Weeds will go through, and when you pull, the burlap will come too. Could just be me. Weed seeds are always an issue with hay as a mulch," end quote. No, it's not just you. It's definitely, weed seeds are almost always an issue with hay mulch. It can be a great tool and resource, but it can also only really be used, like if you are willing to just keep piling hay on top of the hay or have other means of managing those weeds. Also that day, at Doug Lee wrote, quote, "Next episode, Jesse plus a bottle of whiskey plus a cigar telling us what's wrong with the news," end quote. And it looks like someone found my retirement plans. Thanks as always for your contributions this week, friends. I love it. It's so much fun to read through them. There are always several comments I just can't get to that are really good. So listeners, just know we have the best commenters on YouTube, and you can always glean some good info down there. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Microscopy BRB. Still got a little while, Oscar. A little more show to go.
Fall season for us in our backyard orchard and garden. We have about 45 fruit trees. We use living mulch where we can. We plant berries and other edibles between the trees. This is the main garden and greenhouse that we use to grow the vegetables and other edibles. And there's the rest of the orchard. We use solar power for most of our gardening.
Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Myra Rosenblatt, who writes, quote, "I'd love to have a microscope to look at soil and just have for my kids to use to look at stuff. Suggestions on one that might cost a few hundred, not thousands, but be a real microscope, not a kiddie one," end quote. All right, so although I am by absolutely no means a microscope expert, I can at least tell you a little bit about the scopes that I have and how I feel about them. One is overkill completely. The other one is probably what you might be looking for exactly, in that sort of few $100 range, but maybe still a little bit more than necessary. Also, it's just worth noting that the vendors at the microscope places, like places that sell microscopes, are super helpful and can always guide you in this decision better, probably much better than I can. So I will talk generally about my feelings on microscopy and microscopes, but you should also just like take specific goals to the vendors and ask them. They may upsell you almost certainly, but most of them will just be, super helpful and get you what you want. Anyway, we got our microscopes from a place called Microscope World. They were indeed very helpful and even for a while ran an affiliate program with us, but it's been many years now since that happened. But I wanted to, in the name of full disclosure, mention that because I'm going to link in the show notes to the microscopes I got from them. On the lower end, but not the super low end, I got a Motic Swift M2251C. You don't have to memorize all that. Again, they're linked in the show notes. At the time, it cost us around $300, I think, but it's gone up since then, I believe. This is an incredibly lo-fi setup, and it's cordless, but there is also a corded version, which I think is a little bit cheaper. Either way, it can fit 3 objective lenses, which gives you a range of different perspectives to look at the sample. For what it sounds like you're looking for, it's probably something like this. Very simple. You can see lots of stuff, easy for kids to use, not a huge investment, will last forever. Great tool. Then on the higher end / overkill side of things, we bought a Motic Panthera S trinocular microscope. Now, in my defense in buying this thing, the idea was to use it for microbial footage, like what you can see if you were watching this on YouTube. So I also had to buy some adapters for the camera, though, to be honest, I wish I had bought just like a monitor of some sort or just figured out some other way to record stuff or just some other way of recording off of this thing because it's just kind of a hassle to get our DSLR camera up on there and adequately film much of anything. The footage is okay, but there are better approaches and options for this, I believe. A couple things of note. One, you will want to obviously get some slides and slips and maybe a cleaning kit, just so you have stuff to use. So you'll also have to factor that into the price. You will also want to make sure to have some sanitizer ready so you and the kids are not all sharing the same eyepiece. And any parent should know, or find out the hard way, eye stuff should not be shared. Other than that, I love having microscopes, and I think they are both entertaining and educational for littles. I use the sort of portable one, the cordless one. I use that in the field, so like when I want to test compost or something, I can just take it out there and check it real quick. And then obviously the big guys, like the one that we do fun micro footage with. If you have the time to like really learn it or the money for a course on the subject, microscopes can tell you more about, like how your soil practices are doing in terms of monitoring the soil life there and the diversity. Is it getting more ample? Is it getting more diverse? Are you seeing more different critters, more fungi? All of those things can be interesting and helpful, and kids love seeing the tiny creatures. It's not cheap. It's not going to change your farm, but a microscope can make a fun investment, especially to use with kiddos. Anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents there, but others can always obviously feel free to chime in with their experiences. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk more about dry farming tips and tricks and voices. Be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTIL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership. Today's episode is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. All right, back to the show. All right, so on Wednesday when I spoke with Mikey and Kez, they asked what were some of the tricks that I learned dry farming. Hannah and I had interned on a dry farm, and even when we started our own farm, we started dry farming for several years. In fact, we will still use dry farming techniques for large swaths of our current farm. And during that interview, I had mentioned a few tricks that I'd learned, but after I sat on that question for a little bit, I thought of a few others, or at least some context to give some of the ones that I mentioned to really flesh out this idea of like what a dry farmers can teach any other farmer, because even if you have irrigation, using dry farming tricks may help you to reduce your water usage and just generally get more successful crops. If you don't have irrigation, well, you're dry farming, and these tricks will all come in handy. For us, it really starts with the soil block, which I mentioned that day. If you don't know what the heck I just referenced in terms of a soil block, we start almost all of our transplants in blocks of soil made with special soil block makers. These blocks require, well, the makers themselves, obviously, but also double or more the amount of soil that a cell tray or a wind strip might use. In our experiences, the soil blocks grow more robust transplants, etc., but where they help with dry farming is twofold. One, they come with more, life support, more soil mix than a cell tray for when the block goes into the soil, so they just have more to feed off of. But also the plants hold so much better in the greenhouse than cell trays. What I mean is that if it's dry for a week, but there's a chance of rain in the forecast next week, I don't sweat it. I just wait till closer to the time to plant whatever that block is so that I have a better chance of it getting really well watered in. Or if it is raining and I can't plant, like it's just pouring, I also don't sweat it. Soil blocks can hang out for multiple weeks past when they are mature enough to plant. Like a cell tray can't really do that. It'll get root bound. The soil blocks just create flexibility in that way. And I can just kind of let them keep growing until the time is right to plant them. In fact, dry farming trick number 2 has to do with timing. Transplants need a lot of moisture right from the jump. If they go into dry soil, it better not stay dry for too long or you just lost all of that work. So often we are planning our planting days around the forecast. Obviously, sometimes that doesn't work out. You just have to get something in the ground, but it is so much easier to sow, say, carrots or plant lettuce or whatever, and have the skies water it in than it ever will be to get all that irrigation established and laid out and then use all that water. Again, soil blocks help us to hold those trays in the greenhouse and enable us to time them well. Don't have rain in the forecast? Well, one trick is to use some sort of temporary mulch to help preserve water moisture, like wherever you plan to plant, or spread it out over the bed surface. So that would maybe be something like what I'm talking about would be maybe like you put a tarp down or a piece of landscape fabric or burlap or cardboard or whatever, anything that can kind of be added to a plot and then removed. That way, once you do pull it back, the soil is nice and moist there and ready for whatever you're transplanting. Reduce or preferably eliminate bare soil. Boo bare soils, though sometimes they do happen. But bare soils are not going to have as much moisture as a mulch soil. Obviously, mulch if you can, and I'm talking about compost, straw, that sort of stuff. And if you can't and you have to have some bare soil, make sure to, the weed competition is down to nada if you can help it, and that you cultivate after every rain. That is really important just to keep those weeds down and also just keep that soil from crusting too hard, which creates a surface level compaction that makes it hard for gases to escape and can be hard on your plants. If you have a small amount of water, like irrigation water, but not enough to really irrigate, water stuff in really, really well. Never put a plant into dry soil and then just keep it dry. That you just get a dry plant. And also never put a dry soil block into the soil. Make sure to soak the trays really, really well before transplanting, preferably in a compost extract or, for some bonus good guys. Use shade cloth to help keep the soil cool and the plants cool after transplant while they wait on the rain. Then, of course, good soil practices for the win. Soil organic matter will go a long way in helping you through drier times. Space also matters, not like that space, but like spacing. In a dry farming situation, you cannot do bio-intensive plantings. I've tried it. You just get mostly mat plants. Give them a little space, and that will go a long way in their productivity because they won't be challenging each other for so many resources, in particular water. Now, some of you just do not live in places where it rains enough for much, and there's only so much you can do. Plants need water, microbes need water, everything needs water, so you will just have to find some. But mulch will help. Compost and building that soil organic matter will help. Then hopefully a few of these tricks will also help get you through there as well. And so anyway, that's most of what I could come up with. What say you all? What are your dry farming tricks? Otherwise, let's get this weekend rolling, friends. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to do that and get your end of the year tax break in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you are getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor a show and show your love for, keeping this information free and open to the public, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book. I mean, the holidays are upon us. If you want to get them, I would order them really quick. I can't make any promises, past like mid-December. So anyway, pick that up at no-tillgrowers.com to support this work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of December, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Kirsten Lynch, I nailed it. Kyle Richardville, Patrick Weaver, Alex and Oliver, Bill King, Chris Yates, and Ian at Grindstone Farms. Shouts to all of you. All right, so our story this week is about a one-woman show that is acted out in a theater, sort of in conjunction with a movie. Like, they're kind of acted out at the same time. You just do them in a movie theater, like half live show, half movie. And in the show, it starts out with a cell phone ringing in the crowd, and the actress picks it up, and it's her husband, who has also just appeared on the screen, which all of this will make sense if you've listened to this week's episodes. Anyway, the woman in the audience, she quickly realizes that the audience can hear the conversation, and also that she too can see him on screen. But then when she sees that everyone can see him on the screen, she, like tries to call him back and be like, what's going on? But her phone is dead. And so she, along with the audience, is just like watching her husband who is driving. And this is really a story about like of an affair where the woman sees the man heading to the house of a mutual friend and not on a business trip, as he said. And anyway, the actress, pacing in front of the audience, begins to tell the story of the relationship. And so doing, the screen sort of flashes through her memories and scenes from her life, her family. Madeline plays the mom really well, and her friends, and interestingly, like in a twist, asks the question of whether the husband is actually cheating on her or if the screen is somehow just tapped into her fears or her imagination. It's amazing. You'd love it. And anyway, the show was a hit. There were some, technical difficulties here and there, but for the most part, the world loved it, and also learns from the show that we haven't yet tapped the full potential of entertainment of what like humans can come up with and create and combine when it's just themselves. We don't need a bunch of ones and zeros coming up with our stories. Madeline says in an interview, we just need more people, specifically some of these amazing actresses that have all this experience that never get enough jobs. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you on Monday.